Today we're going to learn about parallel lines and transversals. A parallel line, or a set of parallel lines, are lines that never intersect. They are lines that never intersect. And we've been working with those for years. So when you see parallel lines, they are going to be just lines that never intersect. A way to show that they're parallel in geometry are these little arrows, and it shows that they will go on forever and never intersect. We see those in our real life with railroad tracks and bricks and different types of lines that way. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect, but they're special because they intersect at a 90-degree angle. They intersect at and create 90-degree angles. So intersecting lines, they don't always have to intersect and create 90-degree angles, but that's what perpendicular lines do. So we'd have one vertical line, and then we'd have one horizontal line. And so what that does is it does create a 90-degree angle. If lines intersect but do not have a 90-degree sign, or they're not stated that they're perpendicular, then they do not have a 90-degree angle. Perpendicular lines are the only ones that have 90-degree angles. Transversals. Transversals are lines that intersect parallel lines, and they create angles. Now, they don't create specific kinds of angles, like it's not automatic that they're 90 degrees, but transversals have really definitely deal with our parallel lines. So if we had a parallel set of lines right here, right, we have our little arrow to show that they're parallel. A transversal is whatever line cuts through it. So that orange line is the transversal. And the angles that we see are created here, 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 and down at the bottom as well. It creates 8 different types of angles. And we're going to learn about the different angles in these lessons. So for example, the first type of angles are going to be corresponding angles. So first off, I'm going to draw a picture of our transversal. So if we have my parallel lines here, and I draw that transversal again, and it can go any direction. I'm going to have it go the other direction now. It's going to create different angles. So we have our 8 angles that I'm going to just number for now, and you guys will see this a lot in the lesson. Okay, so let's talk about corresponding angles. In a corresponding angle, we have actually 2 sets of 4. So we have these 4 angles right here, and these 4 at the bottom. I like to think of them as different tables, like the ones we sit on in our classroom. Corresponding angles are the 2 angles that are in the same position as their partner. So they are angles that are in the same position as its counterpart. So what I mean by that is if I'm trying to find my corresponding angles here, my first set of, we can have a corresponding angle for everything, but one corresponding angle would be numbers 1 and 5 because they're both at the top left. Another angle that I can say, another pair of angles that are corresponding would be 4 and 8 because they're at the bottom right of that table. So corresponding means they're in the same position as their counterpart. Now, the important thing to know about corresponding angles also is the fact that they are equivalent. Okay, so another thing that you need to jot down is the fact that corresponding angles are always equivalent or identical or congruent. They all mean the same things. They are equal. That is the same thing. And this is just one type of angle that we'll be working with in this chapter. So make sure you guys are looking at those. Now we're going to use corresponding angles, transversals, and whatnot to find different angle measures. The first angles are on the left here. We see a transversal that's created with two parallel lines and the transversal going through, and it says to use the figure to find the measures of angles 1 and angle 2. So for angle 1, we can automatically figure out what its angle is. If this is 110 right here, do you guys see how he's on the bottom left of that 4 grouping? Well, look, number 1 is also in that bottom left. So that means they're identical, they're congruent. So angle 1 is 110 degrees. All right, so if angle 1 is 110 degrees, let me go ahead and erase some of this so that we can move on a little. If it's 110 degrees, then we need to figure out what exactly angle 2 is. So angle 2 creates a straight line with angle 1. We've learned about this, all right? If they create a straight line, angles 1 and 2 are supplementary. So angles 1 and 2 have to add up to equal 180 degrees. So we have angle 1, that's 110, plus our angle 2 that we don't know about, but we know that they have to equal 180 degrees. In order to find out what our angle 2 is, I'm going to take away 110, so I just do 180 minus 110. Our angle 2 is equal to 70 degrees. And that is our answer. Try the next one on your own to see if you can get it. Which angle is going to be corresponding to 99? All right, and then the two angles are going to be supplementary, so you're going to subtract from 180 degrees. This time, instead of finding just a couple angles, we're literally going to use that one number. So we have 75 degrees in our first example, and we're going to find every single angle in this figure. So right now, 75 degrees is at the top right of our 4 grouping. The corresponding angle to that is angle 6. So angle 6 is also 75 degrees. All right, so we know that angle 6, 75 degrees. Now, we can also use some previous knowledge that we had, just like in the previous problems with supplementary angles. However, I want to talk about angle 1. We can figure out what angle 1 is as well. Angle 1 is right across from that 75 degrees. That means it's a vertical angle. And vertical angles are also identical. And I'm going to write that. It's a vertical angle. I'm going to write for number 6 that was corresponding, because we should know why the angles are what they are. Now, if number 1 is vertical angle to that 75 degrees, isn't angle 4 vertical to angle 6? So angle 4 is also 75 degrees because it's vertical angle as well. And this time it's vertical from angle 6. Now we have to worry about our 2, 3, 5, and 7. We can definitely find out how to find these angles. Okay, so I'm just going to write them down just so that we have that ready for ourselves. All right, so if we have the angle 2 is right across from our 75, doesn't that create a straight line? It should equal 180. They're supplementary. So what we do is we do 180 minus 75. After we do our borrowing and whatnot, we get that the missing angle is 105 degrees. So angle 2 is 105 degrees because it's supplementary. And I want you guys writing your reasoning on why the angles are what they are. Now, if we have that angle 2 is 105, isn't angle 3 vertical from that? So he also has to be 105 because vertical angles are identical, congruent. Vertical from angle 2. Now we have that 5 and 7. Now, angle 5 is 105 degrees because it's corresponding to angle 2. Remember, corresponding means they're at the same place at the table. Angles 2 and 5 are at the top left of our system. And angle 7 is also 105 degrees because it's vertical from angle 5. Now, when you start seeing these examples, guys, you only should have 2 different angle points when it talks about transversals. So we shouldn't have more than 2 angles within these 8 whole angles, where you have 75 and 105, and when they add up together, they should equal 180. And that's how the other examples work as well. Go ahead and try the second example with the 68 degrees. Again, you should only have 2 angle measures throughout the entire 8 angles. We have 68, and then you're going to have to figure out the other one. Think about what angles are vertical from each other and what angles are corresponding. Then go ahead and figure out which angles are supplementary that add up to 180.